after church, big crowd of them. Donkey say me fuss, I batting. You know I love me cricket. Crapper sit down behind the stumps. He say alright, I keep in wicket. Giraffe and kangaroo at fine leg. Snake down in the gully. Umpire parrot in the tree. He say alright fellas, are you ready? And he wants the crowd start to sing very loud if you hear them. Hit the ball, donkey, hit the ball. Cover, drive him and make him ball. Hook the man like Halim Charan and put him straight in the stand. Elephant turn and pick up the ball. He say, I open the bowling. Monkey say, boy, the size of you. If you say you're bowling, you're bowling. Well, elephant walk about half mile, and then he started running. He coming down like an express train, the whole blasted jungle shaking. When he see elephant coming down, oh, donkey start to shiver. Red hands hit him a couple bites. He say, man, bat and pads together. And then the ones in the crowd start to sing very loud if you hear them. Hit the ball, donkey, hit the ball. Cover, drive him and make him ball. Hook the man like Vivian Richard and put him straight out the yard. Elephant coming down like a horse, jump up high and deliver. The ball come down like a thunderbolt and bust the bat into splinter. Liquid donkey, liquid crappo, liquid snake in the gully. Lick down giraffe and kangaroo and gone whistling down to the bunkery. Well, red ants lie down flat on the ground. He say, Lord, that elephant crazy. He must be thinking he's Courtney Walsh or the man from Antigua Courtly. And the ones in the crowd start to sing very loud if you hear them. Hit the ball, donkey, hit the ball. Cover, drive him and make him ball. Hook the man like Brian Lara and put him out the pasture. Scatteration out on the field. Every man jack was hiding. Bravo lie down like if he dead. Giraffe and kangaroo limping. But Mr. Parrot, the umpire, he said, all you hold some straight. Elephant, that was a low ball. Donkey to bat again. The donkey turn round and watch Parrot. He say, Parrot, shut your mouth. You're behind safe up inside the tree. No ball the tail, I out. And he turned to the crowd and he said, very loud, let me tell you, all you're talking about hit the man, but all your backside inside the stand. Send some other jackass to bat. This jackass finish with that.
Well, I would like a clear explanation of this word that they call it friend. It's a source of great aggravation, and I don't understand it again. They say friends should stick together in sunny days or stormy weather. But all the friends that I ever get, they wear in the raincoat, I getting wet. And when you're drunk and you tumble down, you spread the story all around the town. Is your friend, is your friend, is your friend. And if you're holding a woman hand, who balling out, he's a married man. Is your friend, is your friend, is your friend. Well, your friend will borrow your brand new suit, bring it back dirty and wait. Instead of thanks, the man telling you for them clothes that you have out at deals. And when you're a little bit short with the rent, who telling you for the year of a cent. Is your friend, is your friend, is your friend. Your friend is my friend, and my friend is Now marry how we will be. When you buy a brand new Toyota and you love the car more than life, you won't let nobody drive it. No sir, not even your wife. When your best friend go in the wedding and you let the car to the man, and you walking back from reception with your steering wheel in your hand. You love a woman more than the world, who always bad talking the girl. Is your friend, is your friend, is your friend. But as soon as you break up with she, who picks she up like someone taxi? Is your friend, is your friend, is your friend. Your best friend get a girl in trouble, you're feeling so sorry for you. But the next thing you know, he borrowing go from you to support the baby. But when you get before you get old, who drop in you, who drop in the hole? Is your friend, is your friend, is your friend. Your friend, my friend, my friend is your friend. The more we are together, the more merry we will be. Johnny was living by me, he wasn't rocking no way. Well, I come home early one evening and get him with Beyonce. He said, I only did it from friendship, and I hope you appreciate it. Just imagine your misery if she did go with a stranger instead of me.
And a very good evening to you, and a good night to those of you who are farther away in Europe. Good evening to you who are in Guyana, the wider Caribbean, North America. And good afternoon to those of you on the west coast of the United States of America and Canada. It's still afternoon. The sun is bright and still afternoon. Welcome, all of you, on a Friday evening to Politics 101. We came in this evening, of course, there with the sound of the legendary Dave Martin and the Trade Winds. My goodness, I remember as a boy growing up with this kind of music, and oh God, it's a long time ago. And it's the kind of music that is timeless. And I noticed the younger generation are into the trade wind music. Quite imaginative, you know. Gosh, Professor Rex Nettleford talks about the creative imagination and the creative intellect, you know, and spiritual feeling going in to our art, whether it be music or dance or painting or writing prose or poetry. Certainly, from our part of the world, we have produced the best. And it's no accident that in societies like ours, we have that kind of creative imagination, because, you know, we are always imagining another world, whether it was on the plantation, imagining slavery, you know, or in the boneyard during the period of indentureship, imagining slavery. And even when we became independent in 1966, we are imagining a new world, a world that is so far removed from the plantation, the creative imagination, you know. Nettleford says that when people are oppressed, they retreat to a place that is far beyond where the oppressor can find them. And that's where the creative imagination and the creative energies are percolating. You know, David Rudder talks about deep within our Caribbean belly, tremendous creativity coming out of our region. If you ever have a chance to go to Haiti, as economically poor as that country is and politically in the doldrums. I have never seen more art on the streets. Everywhere, it's like every Asian is painting something. And it reminds me of the beginning of the hip hop culture, because hip hop is a culture. We talk about hip hop music. Hip hop music is rap. The hip hop culture first started with graffitis, where the youngsters in the Bronx were writing their names on the subway, the trains, and it will be there for months, and they would watch their names on the subway, and it gave them joy because nobody was noticing them, and they had to create things to get noticed. And that's how hip hop started, with the graffitis. And then, of course, it went to rap. And then you had the break dance, which is very much part of the hip hop culture. We had some break dancing in Guyana. I know some of the youngsters that I went to school with were fantastic break dancers. But it's the creativity, the graffiti, the dancing, the music. I mean, here is Dave Martin, merging cricket with animals and telling the story that, somebody like myself, who is a quote-unquote scholar, would take a book to tell that story that the Calypsonian, the singer, will tell in 4 stanzas, 5 stanzas, 6 stanzas, and is your friend. And what Dave Martin did in that song is that he brought in something from another great Guyanese singer, Eddie Hooper. Where Are Your Friends Now? An immortal song. And Dave Martin singing on the same theme of your friend. Bob Marley himself talked about, you only your friend know your secret. And Marley, Dave Martin, Eddie Hooper, 3 different genres. Eddie Hooper singing soul, Martin is singing calypso, Marley is singing reggae. And they're all dealing with the theme of the fickleness of friendship. It's remarkable. I am so proud to be a Guyanese and a West Indian. Always proud when I listen to our creative artists. And you wonder if we had the money and the academies like the developed world, where we would have been. Having said that, the Jamaicans and the Trinidadians have done a wonderful job at showcasing their music in particular. And we in Guyana are a little slow, in that we had the boom beat in the 1970s, that was Tom Charles and the Syncopators, kind of merging the different beats and our Shanto music together, but it never really took off. In the same way, the Bajans had Spooge, the Merry Men. You all remember? So reggae and calypso are not the only 2 musical genres that we have produced in our Caribbean. But anyhow, good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. Dave Martins is still with us. He just celebrated a birthday, and he has a song, Where Are Your Heroes, Caribbean? Where are your heroes? He's certainly one of our heroes. And they've had this debate in the papers recently, and Terry Gajraj and Shivraj and so on, saying Jem Madhu chimed into that our society, our governments have not always paid attention to our artists. One has to go back to Burnham, the person that we always like to beat up on. Some of it justified, but also one who encouraged the art Of course, we know of Carry Festa in 1972, the first one being held in Guyana, but there was Guy Festa. I remember participating in Guy Festa as a schoolboy. And in those days, I mean, the talent coming out of our schools was so rich, because the government of the day saw the importance of art in telling our stories, in projecting us to the world as an equal people. I'm paraphrasing Nettleford there. We have not created skyscrapers and leaning towers. What we have given to the world is our mind. Our mind, whether it's our scholars, our artists, our cricketers, and other sportsmen and women. It's our mind that we have the world. And one cannot talk about sports, art, dance, music without talking about the Caribbean. Small islands, small populations, but boundless creative energies. And sometimes our politicians play games with our dignity. How can you watch a people who have survived the worst that the world threw against them for 400 years and think you can go and buy them with a couple pieces of bloody silvers? Bloody silver. It's an insult to the creativity and the imagination of a people who have fought their way to see the light of day when darkness was put over their lives. And you now go to them and try to buy them for a penny. That is why I'm saying tonight, money don't buy real love. And thanks to the PNC, and I suspect the young people in that party, I rather suspect, I don't know, the young people in that party, they have decided to do what we've always done, is to take a negative and to turn it into a positive. We took the language of the oppressor to the mountaintop. The greatest writers of the English language have come from Black America, Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Latin America. Take the negative, a language that was meant to oppress us. We use it as a form of liberation. And we've added some flavor to it, Creolese, patois. We have turned the English language into our own language of resistance. And then you are going to think that you can buy people with a few pieces of silver. Shame on you. I rather suspect that the young people, the young Turks, as I've christened them today, of the PNC, have decided they're going to fight this local government thing. And they're going to turn it not just about going in and participating in election, but to expose the hypocrites and parasites, according to Brother Bob. And they're doing a wonderful job. When the WPA, my party, said, let's make this election about an uprising and resistance, these young people in the PNC are showing us how you can participate and still uprise and resist. The PPP has been caught in their own so-and-so, but they could have only been caught if people decided we're going to go there and catch them. You see, 2020, We weren't up to what was happening on nomination day. We thought the action is election day. Thanks to that recount, whether it was constitutional or not, that's not my business. The court will figure that out. But what that recount taught us is that elections, PPP style, are rigged long before election day. And now we're finding out they're rigged long before nomination day. Some of us get pessimistic about the young people because we feel that they're not really. That is why when we got to big them up. My guests tonight are two of the young people from the PNC who I think are leading the way in getting the PPP to fall on their own, you all know what. I don't want to be overly colorful, but you all know what I'm talking about. The chairman of the PNC, a boy I tell you all years ago, I like he since he was running for the PNC chairmanship. I said this boy is a good little boy. And I like him, but he been busy. He has not been coming around as much as he should. But I contacted him today, and he said he saw my program a couple of nights ago, and he intended to call me. Well, the old man called you before you call. And Sister Shaneika Haynes, well, I shouldn't say anything. I always say I grew up in a village. And I know in them villages, women run things. No matter what you people say about sexism, it's there. Male chauvinism, it's there. But I know that I grew up in a village. And I've been to villages where women run things, right? And they run things with attitude. The shoulder, but you can't see the waist, and the eye, and so on. Good evening, Brother Shurwayne and Sister Shaneika.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Haynes.
Good evening.
Sounds like you gave a good description of Shaneika there.
But you know. Yeah, as the young people say, you don't know. You see the creativity. My generation say you know. Your generation say you don't know. How the thing go. Bring me up to date. We come on here hearing today that Sharma Solomon, former Region 10 chairman and candidate in the local government elections, was arrested in Linden today. What happened, Shaneika, from what you all are hearing?
All right. So what I understood from having a small conversation with them, and as well looking at a live that Mr. Solomon would have done this afternoon, is that as we know, they have been going around Linden, Amelia's Ward area, everywhere, campaigning, talking on the road corners, etc. And apparently last evening, there was an agent of the PPP who attended that meeting and, tried to agitate, so to speak. From what I understand, there was no real reaction to him. They continued doing what they were doing because they weren't going to be distracted. But to his surprise, this morning, he was asked to appear at the station to answer to whatever allegations were brought there. And he went to the station where he eventually got a lawyer and they spoke, and he was released this afternoon. From
any charges?
Not that I know of. I didn't hear of any charges being laid against him. Basically, what I understand, they had him in there practically wasting his time because they had no evidence of anything that he was being accused of, and eventually they let him go this afternoon.
But there seems to be the widespread feeling in Linden that this thing was instigated by this PPP person.
Yes, correct, correct. The same individual who attended the meeting yesterday. And I mean, that's not the only case that we had today. In fact, we had another case right here in Georgetown. One of our comrade, after campaigning in one of those areas, was leaving and was practically abused by the PPP candidate of the in the area, one of those crossovers. And next thing he knew, the police was calling him last night, asking him to go to the station, which he didn't do until this morning. And again, they just wasted person's time at the station, had him there for probably half of the day or so, and eventually he was released as well.
Shurwayne, this is a frightening development because it is clear that you all have exposed the
Yeah,
PPP
it,
in the
it is.
community, and they
It
now
is.
seem to be using the police to retaliate.
Mhm.
It certainly is, Dr. Hines. We saw this kind of activity from the PPP. In fact, every elections you see this kind of activity from the PPP, especially when they're in government. Typically, they use the police force to do their bidding. They have their agents going around in 2014, if I can recall correctly. If we all can recall, you would have recalled that famous Kwame Mokai video in Georgetown there, and so many other activities, similar activities by the PPP. So it's the way how the PPP operate. I looked at Bharat Jagdeo just his press conference yesterday, and he's talking about agents in the PPP intimidating, and so he know exactly what they're doing, but he's playing this spin card, even as they're doing it, to say, well, say to the public and to say to his supporters, well, don't look in our direction, look into the PPP's direction. But it's pretty frightening. We know what the PPP is capable of. We've seen over the years what they can do. But what I will say to you, and what I will say to the viewers, we will not be deterred. We're in this fight for the long haul. We will put our every effort into this fight to ensure that the people of Guyana see the backs of the PPP. We will expose them. One of the, that in considering whether we go to local government elections or not, this is exactly one of the things that we discussed. Um, we figured that there would be a lot of intimidation. We figured that the elections could be rigged even before we get to elections. So we became very vigilant, in even leading up to nominations day. So hence what we're seeing now, and the exposures that we're seeing now. But to speak specifically to Linden, um, the PPP has always tried these kind of tactics in Linden and even in Georgetown, in our strongholds. They always, I think it's Martin Luther King. No, it's not Martin Luther King. Um, what's that the famous um, African rights fighter, Malcolm X?
Malcolm X.
when he's when he said, they will pay one of us, and it's always one of us that is being used
Mhm,
to infiltrate and to
mhm,
do all these negative things. And then
mhm,
they come up to say, well, it's PNC or it's APNO that is doing these things, but it's always one of us, Dr. Hines. So
mhm,
we are on the lookout for it. We will not be deterred. We will not back down in this fight. We will push forward as a party. Our support base is intact. We are confident that we will hold our support base, and we will do even better um, than we did in previous elections. And so, there's a lot for us to look forward to in these elections.
Shaneika, let me come to you. Um, you were here last week, I think. Last week
yeah.
you were here, and things were just starting. You were just starting to find a few things. But it seems as though in the last week, you all have uncovered so many things. Bring us up to date as to what you all have found nationwide.
So it's basically the same from region 1 to 10.
Uh-huh.
There are dead persons who would have miraculously signed. I mean, we do understand that the PPP thinks they have the monopoly over the dead, but they would have signed from region 1 to 10. We're finding that. In fact, just yesterday, while I started to actually post virally the list that I took for Better Hope LBI, where another dead person was pointed out to me from the Better Hope LBI area. We're also finding persons who um, usually use a fingerprint to do any business, whether it be with GCOM or anywhere else, to collect their pension, these kind of things. They miraculously learned how to sign, so they sign those documents as well. We're constantly getting calls from persons who are finding their name on PPP lists who live overseas and would have lived there for years and that kind of stuff. So you have that. You have blind people who names are appearing as signed on the list. So there are lots of different things happening in terms of what you're seeing on the list. And as I said, this is not set in one area. This is what we are finding across the country. This is not the PPP stronghold or the supposed coalition stronghold that you're finding this. You're finding it across the board, whether it is the PPP stronghold or whether it is the coalition stronghold, you're finding the same things on the PPP list.
Shurwayne, you want to add anything to what Shaneika recounted there?
Um, yes, dear. Shanika gave us a very long and thorough list um, there with all the fraudulent activities that were uncovered. Additionally, I must mention though, there are persons who were duped into signing the list because basically what we found is that whoever is the person that is going around, whether it's the candidate or on behalf of the candidate, they tell them different stories. Basically, you sign in this list you sign in this paper to collect some grant
Yes.
and these sorts of things. So we had cases of that where persons now are saying that yes, they can recall signing a list, but they didn't sign for that, or
Yes.
they didn't sign for this candidate. Shanika, you would recall we were discussing a case where the candidate said that he was independent,
Yes. So
and it
yeah,
turned
that
out
was a
it
case
turned out that he was a PPP candidate. So he went around saying to the
that he's
persons that he's
independent.
running independently
Mm.
and begging for these votes, these signatures. And then, so the persons are saying, no, we did not sign the PPP list. But
Correct.
then it turned out that a few of them did sign this person's list, thinking, we embrace as a party, if I can stick this in here, we embrace local persons running for your constituency. So we, as a party, we really don't have a problem with that. So our
Mhm.
supporters understands that too. And so if you have a good candidate there, or somebody perceived to be a decent person, and they go around and say, no, I'm running independently and I have these XYZ plans. And, but then in the end, their names turn up to be a PVP candidate. So you had issues like that. You had
Mhm.
issues where persons were saying that here, the leadership openly said to them that look, you gotta sign this form. You're a 10-day worker, we employ you, you gotta sign this form. And obviously they don't want to not sign. They're not supporting the candidate, but they believe that if they don't sign it, then they are going to lose their jobs. And so those, in a nutshell, those were some of the things we found. And Shaneika is correct. It is not only in PPP strongholds that we are seeing this kind of activity, but also in the PNC, APNU, AFC strongholds. And there is a reason, I was analyzing it. Jagdeo is boasting about fielding candidates in every constituency. But you and I know, Dr. Haynes, that there are certain constituencies where the PPP will not get signatures. And there are certain constituencies where the PNC might not get signatures. But to put it, to say to the Guyanese people that, we have support all over and we have candidates all over. They go to the Afro-Guyanese community and they know that they can't get support. So they work all these different tactics. And when they come short, when they fall short, they look to put in a few names that are dead, put in persons that they know no longer live in the community or migrated. Just this afternoon, I would have posted, well, actually yesterday, I did a quick run of 2 constituencies, only 2 constituencies in Evergreen Paradise. That is where Dartmouth is located. And very, very quickly, I could have spot a number of persons that were dead, a number of persons that are not living in Dartmouth anymore. Some are in the interior, some live in Georgetown, some are overseas. And when I posted the list, a young woman made contact with me via social media. She doesn't have my telephone number. She made contact with me via social media, and she said, in no uncertain terms, that I did not sign that form. I left Guyana since October 1st. I have the message in my cell phone, I shared this with some of the media personnel. I left Guyana since October 1st. And furthermore, I am not a PPP supporter and I will never sign their form. Please assist me to get my name off of that list. That is what that young lady said to me. So with Jagdeo trying to now downplay this thing, he's trying to do damage control to say, well, it's only in Region 5, in a small area in Region 5, and they're bullying those persons there. They're bullying those persons there. I know you want to get to that, Dr. Haynes. I've been talking too much.
No. You go on. It's your show.
I'm just giving you a little insight on where
I
the
just posted something here by your old friend Harry Gill. Harry,
I'm looking at it.
Harry, you're a big politician, and if you come on this show,
thanks. So
hold on a second. Let me talk to Harry. Harry, you're a big politician, a national politician. Don't come on this show and lift up your skirt or whatever it is. Behave yourself. What do you say? You guys have no shame. You are barefaced liars. All right, we can take them because they're going to tell you back you're a liar. But don't come here and behave bad. I like when people like you come on the show because I'm a teacher. And anything I do, I teach. All right? So, Ari, you and I get that. I ain't going to block you. Stay on and learn something, and you can make your little comments like this. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Shurwayne.
I feel that
we don't have to block him. We don't have to block him. I know, not personally, but I know Mr. Harry Gill. We know that he is close with the PPP. We know that he benefits handsomely from the government. So we understand why
Harry, if you
the comments are there, and he has to follow in his master's footsteps.
Yes, Ari, if you behave bad tonight, you're calling Carol.
Yes,
So behave yourself.
I was pointing out, Dr. Haynes, before the interruption from Harry. I was pointing out that the fraud is widespread, and it is a clear attempt to rig the 2023 local government election. I want our viewers to understand this. This is a barefaced, clear attempt. I'll borrow Harry Gill's word, barefaced. It's a barefaced, clear attempt to rig the 2023 local government elections. And it is widespread. It is not what it is not what Jack Dio and others are, and Harry Gill, the Harry Gills of the PPP, are trying to say. In every single region, the dead is on the PPP's list. The migrated is on the PPP's list. Persons who can't sign, who use thumbprints, they suddenly can sign. Look, you know, Jagdio is trying to say that it's only in Region 5. But and APNU is intimidating people, and Carol Joseph and Vince Roy Jordan and these persons, what they are doing in the night. And I see Susan Rodriguez now saying that we cutting off people water and how we pelt in their house, all sorts of frivolous things. This is the damage control that they're doing. Look, Dr. Haynes, there is an entire list that was rejected by GCOM. As soon as the PPP submitted it, as soon as it was submitted, it was rejected by GCOM. It was rejected by the RO, the GCOM staff, not by some objection by the PNC or by APNU or any other party. GCOM rejected it, and what did they do? They went back and they forged more signatures and submitted that same list again. They tried to clean it up a bit. Credit to them, but they came back with forged signatures on that very list. I watched Jack Dio yesterday as I was traveling to Region 2. I was looking because he now has this attitude that he holds a press conference just after hours. And so he was calling my name and calling Norton's name, Comrade Leader's name, and all the others. And he tried now suddenly, after a number of days, after that famous case with the Jacobs, where the young lady took off on Facebook, not the PNC, the young lady Jacobs from Berbice took off on them. And then Jagdio subsequently apologized. He apologized, acknowledging that there was fraud. Fraud was committed by his party. We put that aside now. He comes back. Because that didn't work. The young lady went back, took to social media again and said, well, we still didn't get an explanation how that name appeared there. And with all that is happening, they come back now to do damage control. Suddenly, he said that the mother who has been deceased since I think it's the 6th of April, the mother signed the form since last year before she died. Suddenly. But if you check that form, Dr. Haynes, and it's all over social media, if you go to the form, you will see that the entire list is rigged. The entire one person signed for Miss Jacobs. God rest her soul. I'm so sorry for her name to be dragged into this, but we have to expose the lies. The entire form is on social media, and if they want to contest it because he's saying now he's seeing forms that are photoshopped, let us go back to GCOM. Let the PPP go and get their form. They have copies. Let them post it as they did in 2020 or in February before March 3rd. Let them post it again. Let them post it and show the signature of Miss Jacob and others on that form.
If I may add to that.
Yes, Shaneika, go ahead. Yeah.
If I may add to that, what people need.
Hold on, Shurwayne. That's Shaneika.
Yes.
Go ahead.
What people need to understand, as Jagdio comes with that nonsense of she signed it before she died, the area that we're talking about, I saw somebody ask, it is Woodlands, Bel Air, that's in Region 5. Now, this list that Miss Jacobs was on was the list that was totally rejected on nomination day by the Arrow. The
Mm-hmm.
Arrow acknowledged that they received a list that was fraudulent because every single signature on that form was exactly alike. Every letter was exactly alike. And the RO said to them, take everything and do it over and come back. So if Miss Jacobs had signed that form before her death, okay, then you were sent to change the entire list. Now you came back with a new list, supposedly, but you did the same thing. You just get a different person to sign than the first person that signed. And you add Miss Jacobs' name again. So then they explain to us how Miss Jacobs signed after her burial? Because nomination day was just a few
Great
days
point.
ago. She was in her grave at that time. So it is absolute nonsense for Jagdio to come again. Well, I shouldn't say it's absolute nonsense because for me, almost every time Jagdio sits down, it's hours of lies, nothing else. So for him to say that either they didn't tell him, they didn't explain, or he just barefaced as usual. So it was
You
impossible for her to sign it on the 12th of April.
Good evening to you all who are joining us in your numbers. You come late, you miss some, but you still got a lot of action. The Young Turks are here tonight. Tonight. You don't get the big leaders with the big name. These are young people, the Young Turks. And let me say this. When Jack Dio said that you're all intimidating and you're all this, what you really trying to say is that you're all fighting back.
Mhm.
We understand when he said that is because he expected that the opposition would have lie down and
Never.
said, all right, back to back, belly to belly, I done that already. But
Mm-mm.
instead of that, you all are fighting back. And I think that is what has taken them by surprise. I often say my big problem with politicians across the aisle in Guyana is they don't understand politics. You have politicians who don't understand politics. If Jack Dio had taken time to study this society and what is happening in our society, he would not be surprised that you all young people would have fight this thing. But stick broker years, either intentionally or because he does not pay attention. Let me say, I congratulate you all for doing the kind of work that you all are doing, because that's the kind of work that is about politics. The dressing up and going to parliament has its place, but politics don't fight in the parliament. The parliament is the end product. The fight takes place where you all are doing it. So, have you all taken this story to the police? All these things that you all are tabulating and so on and so. Have you all reported to the police? Shurwayne?
Well. That is the thing. I was just about to say that I was just about to add this point that while they claim that we're intimidating people, how do they explain persons going to the police? How do they explain that? Now we are Dr. Hines, we've taken some persons have gone to the police. We have reported these on a case by case basis. You could imagine You could imagine how many names just keep flowing, just people just keep
Hundred,
calling,
hundred.
complaining. So we are, it's a work in progress. We are, our chief elections officer is in contact constantly with GCOM, providing more and more evidence. But our plan, we will compile all of this at the end of this process so that GCOM, I see the chairperson has recently said that, well, she ain't see nothing. It's quite disingenuous. I said it yesterday because those arrows, many of those arrows have the information there, and those arrows are GCOM arrows. So it's very improper. It's very out of place for her to say that. But at the end of it, coming back to the point, at the end of it, we will put that together so that GCOM can have it in one place. The police can have it in one place. The diplomatic community can have it in one place. The independent folks within our society, those independent groups can have it. The media can have it, and so we're working on it. But even as we're doing that, you could imagine that these persons that are dead, some of their relatives might not come forward. Some of the relatives are not within the area. They're not in a position to get to GCOM or to get to the police, to the police station. Some are just afraid. Some are afraid because of their work and that kind of thing. So what I would say to you is that what we're uncovering here is only the tip of the iceberg. You can imagine how many thousands of such names, are forged, are being forged on those PPP lists. And I was taken back when Jack Dio said that in 2018 they didn't find fraud. There might be an element of truth to that. We were not looking there. We
Exactly.
were not
Exactly.
looking there.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
our eyes,
yeah, yeah.
given the experience in 2020,
There you go.
we now recognize that there were certain things that were missed, and people were asking, how y'all got polling agents all over, and y'all didn't find this and y'all didn't find that. Well, we're seeing the fraud, how it's done in front of our eyes, in front of our very eyes. And for the large part, it is not only APNU putting it out there, but the people themselves are coming forward. That is the beauty of it. Persons themselves are taking to social media. They are hurt from because of what would have happened to their votes in 2020. And so people themselves are taking up this challenge to expose the PPP and the fraudulent acts.
Shaneika, what do you make of the GCOM chair saying that this matter is a matter for the court for a petition, and that GCOM cannot do anything about these fraudulent things that you all are uncovering?
As a learned justice as she stands, and also her history of presiding over election cases like she did in 1997, it is absolutely bewildering that she can utter such words, because you're the head of an organization which has parts that are supposedly working together. Her saying that she has not received any reports is another one of those huge lies that the PPP is accustomed to. And when she says that, I wonder if she means that she hasn't received it as a PPP agent rather than the chair of GCOM. Because as the chair of GCOM, you have administrative officers. You have Arrow, the returning officer. You have a deputy, and you have those persons, scrutineers, working in that station. And as we pointed out the case earlier, where it was the RO who rejected the list for what the RO immediately saw as fraud. Every single day, those ROs have to report to the CEO, who reports to the chairman and the commission. So every matter that has been raised in the public domain thus far is sitting inside of GCOM. If I post the list of Better Hope LBI, there are lines drawn through those some persons on the PPP list simply because those persons went to GCOM and said, listen, I did not sign this list. Take my name off of it. So if the RO is in receipt of that and would have carried out those actions, from the time the RO carries out those actions, it means that GCOM is aware of fraud, because the RO reports to every part, all the working parts of GCOM. So the only way she can be truthful in that is, yes, we did not report it to the PPPC formally. They are made aware of it via social media and the calls from the RO. The APNU did not report to the PPPC. I assume and I hope that that is what she means, because that will be the only truth that will come out of that. Because you sit at the head of GCOM with all this knowledge and you say to the nation you're not in receipt is absolute madness. Absolute madness.
If we can pivot a little, Shurwayne, you're a parliamentarian.
Dr. Haynes, could I make a point on the
yes,
very
go right
point you
ahead.
made there? Look, I believe that the rulings of 2020, the court rulings of 2020 changed everything.
Yes.
GCOM, it is quite clear from those rulings. GCOM is responsible for the conduct of elections. Correct. GCOM has that responsibility to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. Mm-hmm. And once that is your mandate, you, as I understand it from the courts, GCOM has wide-ranging powers, and they have the ability to rectify, to do whatever they can, wide-ranging powers to do whatever they can to ensure that those elections are credible. They went to the point where GCOM became a legislator, created new laws, but in the form of Order 60. Yep. Never before did we have a petition before the results were declared. And so they went to the extent of creating new laws, so to speak, to ensure that a particular
fraud was carried out.
A particular outcome. And that is how I put it, to ensure.
No, you're quite correct. You're quite correct.
And so to say now, well, you're uncovering.
You can't fix things.
Forward. You could
have fixed in 2020, but now when the table's turned, you're saying you can't fix. Because the very first case that went before the Chief Justice was taken by the PPP, and the Chief Justice said, go back to GCOM. GCOM has the scope to fix. So when this lady is now telling us that GCOM doesn't have the scope to fix, they should go to a petition. Did they tell the PPP in 2020, when they approached the court, go to a petition? They know. You see, this is what those who glibly talk about rigged elections. I don't know about rigged elections, whether elections were rigged. And what I know is that there were all kinds of skullduggery in those elections, and that the court, not knowingly, but in the way in which they interpreted the law, facilitated cover-ups in 2020. And you're right, Shurwayne, it has come back to haunt them now.
Mm-hmm.
It has come back to haunt them now. Shurwayne, I was about to ask you your thoughts on this bill that was laid before Parliament in
Which one is
relation
that?
to the new National Security Agency. Your thoughts
Oh,
on it?
oh, oh, that bill.
Yeah.
We, in all honesty, we're still going through the bill, and obtaining advice from experts, persons who have the kind of experience, in line with this bill. But off the bat, and I watched Jack Dio speak on it. I believe yesterday he made mention of it and tried to twist the leaders, Mr. Norton's comments and all sorts of things, that he saw in the Stabrook News. The thing about it is that yes, the agency in some regard has been in existence.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we believe that a government has the right to gather certain types of intelligence, that would be that would aid them in governing. For example, border issues, narco, a number of issues. So that is not the problem here. I want your viewers to understand that is not the problem that is emerging here. The problem is the wide ranging powers that they are now seeking to 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 legislate for this organization, the wide ranging powers. Now these persons will be able to access information that other laws would prevent you from accessing people's personal information, at whether it's GRA or these other agency, or bank information. um, they would able to tap in to use certain device and tap into your networks, your devices, a whole range of powers. As we see it, they're aiming to give to this agency, and that in itself is a problem. But the bigger problem is who's in government. The PPP is in government, and they have a track record of spying on people. You could remember the infamous Roger Khan case with the spy laptop. Roger Khan and a sitting minister, Leslie Ramsamy, and that laptop went missing. But they were using that to target people. And if we look at what they're doing now in these elections, and to come and bring an agency under their control with these wide ranging powers, it is fair to believe that they will use this agency to commit certain acts that are not in keeping with the law, not in keeping with the constitution, not in keeping with good governance. They would basically use it against their opponents. We
Yeah.
see Jagdeo every day cussing out everybody. If a pin say something about Jagdeo, he curses them out. Imagine if he has at his disposal a secret organization that could dig up something on you, that could track you to know where you are, know your routine.
Yeah.
I,
Shaneika,
Where
yes,
this is
your
going to
thoughts, and
point.
while you're at it, Shaneika, comment also on the report by the Commission of Inquiry set up by the president. Yeah.
well, it will all fit into what I want to see.
Mhm.
I think at this point, persons should be realizing that the PPPC is drowning. And like a drowning person, they're clenching at a straw in both cases. The bill that the MP has just been talking about, I think personally that it is an attempt to do what the PPP knows best to find ways to see how they will be further able to control, to victimize the population. And it is also because as much as they use the Guyana police force the way we're seeing them using it to terrorize ordinary citizens, and there is the GDF where they have just put one of their persons there, they are still not safe. They don't feel safe. They don't feel secure because when you are constantly putting pressure on the people, they got the saying they talk when if you lock up all the doors and you're beating a cat all the time, it will fly in your face. So I think the PPP is listening and they're hearing that the population is becoming tired and fed up of them. The same reason they have to sit down in an office and sign all those sheets heading down to local government election because the population is getting tired of them. And it is that fear. Because when they go to outreach, no longer like when they used to go back in the days, they go into Region 6 and Region 2 and sit down in a bottom house and tell people, black man, this or whoever, whatever lies they choose. Because of the social media age, people are getting sense because they're seeing for themselves. And when they sit in those meetings and people ask questions that they can't answer and questions that they're upset and shutting them about, they are clinching to a straw with these things that they're bringing forward. That bill being one, it is them clinching at a straw. It was by no mistake the PPP went on to have a COI on election day fraud. They know where the fraud came from. We all saw the fraud when we had the recount. They are very much aware where it came from. But it is all about timing. They're looking for distraction. And particularly, we've been waiting so long for this. You hear this COI. How all of a sudden in the weeks that we're hearing about all your rigging, all your fraud, it is available. So they're trying everything they could think about in their books as they're drowning. They are attempting to do all these things in a hope that it will save them. But I want to reassure the PPP, the a straw can never save you when you're drowned in an ocean. It can never, ever save you.
Shaneika Haynes, member of the PNC, Shurwayne Holder, member of the PNC, in fact, the chairman of the PNC here tonight, bringing us up to date on what they have been finding in these early days after nomination day. We learned in 2020 that elections are rigged long before election day. Now we are learning that elections are rigged long before nomination day. Oh my God. Oh my God. Only in Guyana. Only in Guyana. Closing thoughts, Shurwayne, and then Shaneika.
Well, thank you, Dr. Haynes. I was about to just rehash what Shaneika is saying there on the COI, that it is a clear distraction. The timing was impeccable timing. When the PPP is under tremendous pressure of allegations, I wouldn't even say allegation of proven fraud being committed. And so they bring this out, Carl Singh and others compile it, and they bring it out to point fingers and to distract not only from their own fraud, but to distract from all the other issues out there that people are worried about, the cost of living, the disaster that is ongoing with in terms of oil, and where they're going with these new permits, and in terms of securing the people's wealth. and a number of other things. So it is a clear, it clearly came out at this particular time when they're under pressure. We always see something like this. In the past, they would have used fires, for example. This time around, we didn't see any fire. Maybe we had enough fire during the last 2 years, but this time around, they brought out the COI. In closing, we've got to continue to fight this fight, Dr. Haynes. We have for the APNU, for the PNC, we must have everything on the table, all cards on the table, all the tools that we have to utilize to expose the PPP and to fight them in these elections, especially against the rigging activities. We must do it. We believe at this point in time there is sufficient evidence for GCOM to call off these elections, re-examine their process. We've been calling so long for an internal review of their process so that they can get it right. They must get it right. Could you imagine if this was general elections, general and regional elections, and you uncovered all these frauds? The nation would have been in chaos. The nation would have been in chaos. And so it is our hope that good sense prevail, but we will continue to fight. We will use every avenue to fight this.
Every avenue. Shaneika?
What I want to say is this, that as a people, as a country, we have to understand that we as well have a part to play. This is my appeal to persons. The APNU, the PNC, we are working and we are doing everything that is possible to follow the procedures and to put together to ensure that no other election, whether it be local government, general or regional election, will face the fate that the 2020 election faced. And with that, we have some responsibilities as a people as we do all the technical stuff and we call. It is also upon the Guyanese population to come out and support us in this fight, to bring the information when they have it, to talk to your representatives in the field. You know, if you think that there is something else can be, nothing is wrong with talking to them and showing it. And the other part is this, this everything that has happened pertaining to heading into this local government election has solidified and strengthened the reason why we must have a clean voters list and we must have biometrics. With these two things in place, and I'm sure there are other things we can put, but on base, if these two things happen, Guyana can see a better country because we will be able to begin to look at what a free and fair election looks like. And it is every citizen's responsibility to join this fight. We started our protest in front of GCOM last week, and we will continue to do so next week. And we are asking that persons come out and support the call. If it is only a lunchtime you have, and you have that 1 hour period because we start like around 11:30, come out. It is time we stop being afraid of the people because they will continue to pursue these tactics because we show fear. Show no fear. I like to quote the scriptures. The Bible says, "For the Lord has not given you a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind." When you have fear, you lose your sound mind. So we need to get rid of that fear and face what we must to ensure that this country gets better for all of us. The one people, the one nation, and our one destiny.
Shaneika Haynes and Shurwayne Holder, two of the Young Turks in the PNC APNU tonight, bringing us up to date with what has been happening. Thank you all so much, and I will try as much as possible for you all to come on, whatever combination of you to come on to give us the live blow by blow. Have a wonderful weekend, but the weekend is not just to relax. Weekends are usually the best time for political work. Thank you all so much. And to your audience, it's always good to talk to young people, because it's their country, it's their world, it's their country and their world. And, one of the things that I've learned is that every generation dances to its own beat. Sometimes the older generation dance too slow, and we don't give the young people a chance. But it's good to see these young people on the front line, and they deserve our support. They will make their mistakes. We all generations have made mistakes. Burnham and Jagan made mistakes. Corbyn and Granger made mistakes, and Ramatar. Let these young people dive and delve into the belly of our politics. Make their mistakes, but also make their own triumphs. Good night. I may do something on Sunday, on the eve of Labor Day. Labor Day is on Monday, but we may do something on Sunday. I'll try to get the trade unionists to come in. Good night and love as always. If you are like me, we are all uplifted.